Hi, my name is Casper Rene Johansen, and I'm your YouTube philosopher. In these times with great anguish and hatred towards politicians, I find it very interesting to philosophize how the ideal politician should be, especially with the American election coming up in November 2024. How should the ideal politician be? So I philosophize about that. So here's my thinking so far. Some might think that philosophers should not interfere with politics because a good philosopher must be impartial. But can you even be impartial when it comes to politics? I think that a true philosopher should philosophize over politics. Because philosophy deals with a lot of ethics and morals in general. Politics deals with ethics and moral in practice, and kind of a state formation. Therefore, I believe that philosophy can point in a direction of how the ideal politician should be. Before I will describe this ideal politician as I see it, or the ideal statesman, that's what Plato called it. He called it the ideal statesman. I would first of all dare to argue that this current dominant politician in no way resembles this Platonic ideal of the ideal statesman. In modern politicians of today, they're kind of mostly devoid of character and capabilities, most commonly in philosophy attached to a great a great politician, this ideal statesman. So, if I should describe today's politicians, it is a lack of ability and character, because modern ruling policy is not explicitly ethical, exploratory, or visionary in any way. One of the first philosophers who philosophized how the ideal statesman or politician should be was, like I said earlier, Plato. In Plato's work, he wrote these dialogues with Socrates as the hero. And in one of the dialogues, it's called The Statesman. And it's in there, among other things, that I get my inspiration for this video. The problem with politicians is that they look and act like ordinary people. They look like them too much, actually. But the ideal politician should actually be like a role model for all of us. This is also what Plato thought back in ancient Greece. The ideal politician is a moral example. He or she should be visionary and should actually be more clever and wiser than a regular general public. In short, the politicians should be very skilled at his craft, that is practicing politics. Just like a good carpenter is distinguished by a bad carpenter. Which one of those carpenters creates the best long-lasting carpentry? Bad carpenter or a good carpenter? The average person tend to be amoral and without long-term visions. We tend to be petty, short-sighted, and in the grip of our feelings. Can you also recognize this in modern day today's politicians? Today's politicians seem as if they are without visions of any kind. They seemingly seem petty. They behave immediately as they are in power of their feelings. And they they react immoral at times. That is why there's now a general anguish towards politicians and politics in general, I think. We simply need a better class of politicians who can be role models for all of us. Politicians who don't behave like, for example, the sour next door neighbor, but guides people through mindful political visions. A politician who holds the ethical in high standards and does not appeal to people's inner monster, the bad in all of us. A politician who actually say no to the people and show them sustainable headings because he is a great statesman. Who, as Plato states in the Statesman dialogue, he's actually a wiser man. In history, we often talk about great people like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi because they were visionary. They are still moral examples for us, many of us today, including myself. It is unlikely that the ruling class of contemporary politicians is mentioned as such for posterity. I don't think Donald Trump will be mentioned as a great person in posterity. He will not be online with Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela as great politicians, a great statesman. He will not go down in history like that. The great politicians such as Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi are unfortunately rare. That's the problem, I think, also. Only a few contemporary politicians around the world could maybe live up to this title of a visionary great politician, or Plato's ideal statesman. The time is for visions now, because we're so fucked in every kind of a way in this modern world. We need really great leadership, which is lacking. But of course, we cannot blame the state of affairs only on the politicians, because who ultimately in the end is responsible for this? Because it's us. Who ultimately in the end elected our so-called representatives, our representative politicians? Who elected them in the long, when you think about it? It's us. So the blame kind of comes back to us. The fault actually lies with us, the general public, the voters. And in ancient Greece, they actually had a saying for who they were. They called them the mob, the great public mob. And that's us. We must elect better politicians who have the properties of Plato's ideal statement. This is my thinking about this. Plato had a pupil, Aristotle. He invented what's now it's very hot ethical theory. Aristotle invented virtue ethics. In short, virtue ethics, it's about being a virtuous man / woman, and one acts in accordance with virtues. We consider Nelson Mandela to be a virtuous character. Would we nowadays consider the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, as a virtuous character? One who displays exemplified virtue ethics like Aristotle stipulated a virtuous character should. I let that question be up to you guys, the viewer. I don't want to seem biased, but I probably do. I probably seem biased. In the case of Donald Trump. But if we don't say no to the person who runs for office and elect differently, then we may end up with the death of democracy, as Plato prophesied. Plato warned us against democracy. Plato warned us that in a democracy, people can end up willingly to elect the tyrant. Think about it. Have we done that in the modern democracy? People forget that Adolf Hitler was an elected politician. Yes, that's right. The German people elected Hitler and his political party the NSDAP, which means National Sozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei. Did Hitler exemplified virtue ethics? Don't kill millions of people. That's not virtuous. We should remember Plato's ideal. No wise ideal statesman has ever in history been regarded as a glowing bigot or racist or a nationalist. None of them. This statesman, been regarded as a great diplomat, one who seeks reconciliation of parties in conflict and understanding of a larger coherent world. Nelson Mandela did not seek revenge over the whites after the apartheid. He didn't seek revenge. Gandhi won over the English colonists through anti-violence movement and his salt march through the colonist India. As a philosopher, I'm bound by Epicurus' famous words. That philosopher who does not strive to relieve human suffering, he speaks empty speech. I try to live up to this philosophical oath. I will relieve the suffering by calling for the most suitable representative to lead our countries out of the crisis we're in. There's still high level of unemployment, for example, and many environmental solutions are abandoned and sheltered. This is obviously due to a lack of money. We are still kind of in a financial crisis of some sort, or politicians don't really care because they are generally not guided by morals per se, but by other factors. Evil triumph when good people do nothing. So the saying goes, we must act because something needs to be done. We can elect our representative politicians ourselves. Supposedly we live in democracy, so we can choose better representatives for ourselves. But don't vote for the ones who are, if they're not ideal statesmen, don't vote for them. Then they have to put off better representatives if they don't get any votes. In ancient Rome, for example, the emperor used bread and circus games, gladiatorial games, to put citizens into a dull state of compliance. Likewise, today, politicians want to remove focus away from corruption towards bigotry and fear of terrorism, for example, or fear of Russia, or fear of Corona, or fear of something, fear of financial collapse. That's always been kind of promoting something you should fear for, to distract you from really is the general problem here in the Western society. That's corruption and bad leadership. I just want to say this at the end. Keep in mind to listen to that voice of the heart and not listen to your wallet. Get to know what it's all about. Politics is about real people, not about money or smart election logos. We must keep in mind not to trust the politicians blindly and that politicians are also under the corruption. Politicians are people, and people are by definition not flawless. Humans can be corrupted by positions of power, and all power corrupts all, as the saying goes. All power corrupts all. So be skeptical of the political hypocrisy and despotism of a politician, and do not be fooled into compliance with their bread and games tactics. I think the parliamentary and presidential elections are important, and I do not want to vote for corrupt politicians. I do not want to vote for anyone who does not take ethics seriously and will not work to relieve the suffering in the world and make it a better place. Let Plato's ideal statesman come forth, full of virtue ethics, so we can elect her or him. That's what I'm kind of wishing for. And if there are not really any virtuous politicians out there, I will not vote anymore, because then I'm kind of part of the problem. Because I want this to be taken seriously, that a real philosopher or a real ideal statesman should try to relieve the suffering in the world. They don't really care about us. But anyway, let's let this ideal statement come forth, full of virtue ethics, so we can elect him or her. This is enough political rambling for me, but I always wanted to try this on this channel to be more political philosophy of some forth. So this is my kind of personal take on this ideal statement. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next.